He's going over that cliff. Ah!
Greetings, viewers, and welcome to Hell. It's Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic retrospective for fans of all shapes and sizes. I'm your host, Devin, joined as always by my torture victims, Lauren and Bruce. And you know, we called this show Deep Dive Zone for a reason, because tonight we dive so deep that we hit rock bottom.
Man, I don't know if it's rock bottom, but it's pretty bad.
We are in the Archie comics, as we have been for so long, and we have gotten to one of the most infamous of any of them, because our first issue for tonight is a 48-page special called Sonic Live. Look at that cover.
Man, that's one hell of a way to start an episode.
Like, live-action thingies, I've seen that in, like, you know, movies and stuff. I guess
Sure.
that kind of makes sense. But in comics, I wouldn't really expect them to try this.
Well, so the cover and the name make you think it's going to be like full, like, live-action pictures with Sonic drawn over them. No, it's like that for, like, what, 4 pages?
Yeah, they don't commit
We're getting
to
a bit
really.
ahead of ourselves here, but yeah, you know, the cover with the giant, terrifying Penders Sonic reaching out of the TV, you know, it looks like it's going to be like a Roger Rabbit scenario, but it's kind of the inverse.
Right, and that might have been even more entertaining.
It's certainly not forgettable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lead story for this issue is called The Last Game Cartridge Hero, which is written and drawn, I put drawn in quotations because some amount of it is photographs of his son and niece, by Ken Penders, where Sonic is transported to an alternate dimension where he interacts with the real-life son and niece of writer Ken Penders and defeats multiple versions of Robotnik.
Oh boy.
I don't even know what to make of this, honestly. It is bizarre. We start out right in the deep end with this sequence where Sonic is trying to save Sally from Robotnik, but apparently it's all just a game being played by Ken's son, which is not like any Sonic game I've ever seen.
That really shows that I think we've talked about it previously, that Penders truly believes that his canon is the only Sonic canon, or the most important Sonic canon.
One that he certainly doesn't care about game accuracy. He doesn't care about any kind of game accuracy, because if you look at the photo of the kid flying, he's holding a sideways TV remote. They don't even have a Genesis.
Oh my gosh, I didn't notice.
I didn't notice that until just now either. That's great. Also, can we talk about how these on this bottom panel, the children look very clearly edited in?
Well, yeah, it's composited, because I don't know how an actual kid could stand in relation to the physical space like that.
Just take a better fucking photo.
Yeah, and I also like that it's like they look like they may have been taken from completely unrelated photograph. My question, like, okay, so obviously, I'm just imagining Ken going through the motions of like, all right, son, you're gonna sit here, you're gonna hold this sideways TV remote, which it's wild to me because you can see that he is wearing a Sonic shirt, so it's like he is a Sonic fan to some degree. I don't know.
Well, unless Ken just threw that shirt at him and said, "Wear this."
No, because Ken pretty consistently has said that the reason he tried to get onto the comic was his son was a fan, and he knew a guy who knew a guy, basically.
Well, in that case, if the kid's a Sonic fan, I would assume that came from the games. That would mean they probably own a Genesis.
Your guess is as good as mine. If I had to guess anything, maybe you know, he had like a Game Gear or something, and they just thought like, oh, well, we can't really take photos of that. Anyway, so yeah, Sonic reaches out of the TV and pulls these two random human children in to help him save his kidnapped friends, I guess.
I would like to say you can't just pull someone gets shot, but then they actually get teleported for no reason twice and get away with it. They already did that with Robotnik.
That's
no more goodwill for that. You can't do that again.
Well, it's far from the most egregious thing in this, though, because, I mean, what are these two random human kids supposed to do to help?
You know, game knowledge. They're gamers.
will move on, but they end up using cheat codes to save the day.
That's true, they do.
I know that, but it's like, how
Well,
could you...
at the moment, at least, what does Sonic think these two children are going to do?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, to be fair, they look like Robotnik and Snively, right? Because those are the only two humans he's seen, right?
Yeah.
And they're notable, so
I guess, so maybe he assumes all humans are in some way intelligent?
you look like you have plot relevance.
You look important enough, I'm gonna kidnap you.
No, but what about Al and Cal? Are they too different?
They're in some different dimension. Well, I guess so are these two.
Al and Cal were significant. I mean, he was trying to talk to them. They were just jerks and didn't tell him anything.
That's true.
What is Robotnik's plan here? He has a missile, I think, and there's...
Yeah, his plan seems to be I'm gonna launch an ICBM somewhere.
Well, Sonic goes and tries to defuse like the system somehow with the kids, and I don't know why. I've never heard anyone say, "Oh yeah, deactivated computers. That's like archaeology. Look at these hieroglyphs." Like, I don't think that's the right term for this.
No.
Not really.
Does he not... Can he not read English? I assume that most of Robotnik's computers would be written with, regular English letters and Arabic numerals.
No, he has been shown to read, but I find it funnier that he just can't.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like he presses a button and then little Jimmy, or whatever his fucking name is, says, "You did it, Sonic." So I guess that means the missile's defused, and then the portal is just open.
It's next zone.
It basically is. It's like it's a bunch of bad, like, mini stories, basically.
Yeah.
And I think they're supposed to be jumping through different art styles, because in the next dimension or whatever, they say, "This is so weird. Now you look right out of a Speed Rider cartoon," which implies to me that Ken is trying to draw them like Speed Racer characters. They don't even look that different, to be honest. They certainly don't look anime.
Well, Speed Racer barely looks anime compared to modern standards, at least.
And if you're trying to do different styles, why do they only change it for the kids too? Like, they don't change Robotnik or Sonic at all.
I mean, realistically, if you wanted to change art styles, you get different artists to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want something to look anime, you get Spazion to draw it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although I guess I've never seen him draw humans before. He's probably good at it, though.
I would assume so. He's good at everything else he's done.
I mean,
you know what?
I'm Robotnik.
Oh, yeah, Robotnik and Snively. That's a good point. They're weird humans,
they're not exactly
but they're still
conventional
humans.
looking humans.
And they're still humans, so they count. Anyway.
We've got a whole bunch of Robotniks here working on a big Robotnik.
Yeah, they're jumping through these plots so fast, like, none of them get any time to develop. Like, we were saying, like, there was a missile or whatever, but then it kind of just, they forget about it almost. I mean, they get rid of it, but it doesn't seem to do much of anything. And then, yeah, there are a bunch of Robotniks building a big Robotnik, but this big Robotnik does not come up again.
Well, it feels very much like Penders just wanted to do as much as he could for the issue. And the issue, well, I don't think anything he could have done would have made it good, but the story suffers because we keep jumping through. Well, we're on like our third plot point now.
Yeah, it's very clearly like Ken was so motivated by the concept of drawing his son jumping through dimensions with Sonic that, like, oh, we're gonna have the most Robotniks building the biggest Robotnik robot. So much so that, Lauren, you say it doesn't come up again, and it technically doesn't. But this was part of Ken's grand vision for Archie Sonic, if you can believe that.
Oh, that's right.
You mean it would have come up again?
It technically does, but it's not like it doesn't appear again, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Well, not in this story is my point.
Yes, it has no relevance outside of this comic, and it doesn't have a place in the greater Archie Sonic canon, which makes it hilarious, because this is like Ken's magnum opus, and this is one of the few Archie Sonic stories that never got reprinted in any medium.
Do you know why that is?
Probably the children.
It may have to do with the, signing the rights away to appear in the story, especially since these kids are now adults, they're older than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it may also have to do with just the fact that it's largely irrelevant, and the fact that it's the author putting a lot of his personal life into a licensed comic. It may just be that they're like, didn't want to because it would be a bad decision.
Fair.
Okay.
It also might just be that this comic is kind of embarrassing to look at. The other two stories in this special, I think, have been reprinted at various points.
Yes, they have.
But they get thrown in a jail cell, and there's these two guys here who say they work for SEGA.
Yeah, so like suddenly it's like is Ken Penders a conspiracy theorist that thinks Sonic the Hedgehog is actually an alien and the games are an elaborate cover-up? Because that's like what happens in this story.
Yes, they say that they made the Sonic games based off of a series of sketches from photos of an alternate dimension, which is wild, for characters that are ostensibly from the real world. But when you think about it in that context, it means this is Ken Penders trying to literally write into the canon of Archie Sonic that his version is more important.
That's true, actually. I hadn't thought about
Archie
that.
Sonic exists as a fictional property in the Archie Sonic universe.
Jesus Christ. This special makes my brain hurt.
It is unhinged. And it has a like Lauren said, kind of a unsatisfying conclusion, because the whole problem is solved by I can't even fucking remember the kid's name. Steven Penders is the boy's name. And it says that in the comic book. I'm not doxing Ken's family or anything. Don't do that, by the way. Like, whatever we say about Penders on here, please do not be shitty to his family. Do not harass people.
Of course. He's leaving Twitter, so you can't go harass him on Twitter. But don't harass the guy's family.
I don't condone harassment, even if we shit talk a guy.
Fair enough. Either way, it'll be soon enough that you can't anyway.
Let's not even entertain the thought. Anyway. The problem is solved by putting the Sonic 1 level select code into a panel on a wall that conveniently exists.
You forgot to mention that 2 pages after they were introduced, the other Robotniks turn on Robotnik, and then Sonic saves Robotnik for no reason. They're just like, oh, gotta do what a hedgehog's gotta do. Why? They don't explain.
Yeah, what the hell, Sonic? He saves Stimply, too. He doesn't have to do that either.
Because we can't fuck up our plans for issue 50.
Right.
Honestly, the best thing about this issue is that you don't need to read it.
Yeah, honestly. Is it even actually canon?
It is canon because of that damn robot, but its relevance to anything outside of that is nil.
Fair enough, okay. Alright.
What do you even say? It looks bad, the dialogue is just as bad as we can expect from Penders, and there's a lot of it. And he self-inserted his family members in there. I'm surprised he didn't make himself part of it, to be honest.
I don't know what else to say about the story. It's just...
You don't have to say anything else.
There wasn't a whole lot to it. It's kind of just like, let's do one thing, let's do another thing. Like, I mean, it's kind of odd, but I'd heard of Sonic Live, and I'm like, that was a little underwhelming. I expected more insanity, but it wasn't really that crazy.
I get what you mean. I think, because I'd heard of it before as well, and I knew the concept of it. I thought it was more like, what we commented on before that we started talking about the actual story, that it was going to be a combination live-action photos with Sonic and Co. drawn over it.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't that would have been ridiculously unhinged. And then making it vital to the plot of the comics, that would have been actually unhinged. But the way it is still insane to read, because it makes no sense. It really just feels like Penders throwing everything at the wall, and instead of seeing what sticks, he just uses all of it anyway.
Yeah, I get what Lauren's saying, is that, if you expect this to be bad, like, it is bad, but it's also, like, you can be disappointed that it's not as like, if you're gonna make something bad, you gotta have the audacity to be even more awful. Like, if something is gonna be terrible, I want it to be as terrible as it can possibly be. You know, maybe you should put the drug storyline from the Knuckles comics in here. You should have more romantic drama. You should probably have some melodramatic scene where Sonic dies, you know? And Penders draws his son, like, crying, mourning over Sonic's dead body.
Oh my god.
You should have written these comics.
Yeah, goddamn, Devin.
It needs to traumatize people more than Optimus Prime's death.
Oh
As
my
it
god.
is, it's still bad, though.
It's definitely bad, but it is like... It's weird, bad writing, real-world crossover bad. It's not like... Oh my god, this is insane bad.
Well, hey, you know, we've got 2 more stories. Maybe they can make up for it in badness. Who am I kidding? No, they can't.
They've got better art, at least.
Yeah, the second story of this issue is The Substitute Freedom Fighters, written by Kozlowski and drawn by Art Mawhinney. When the Freedom Fighters are kidnapped, it's up to Larry Lynx to round up a new team to rescue them. This feels like an early series story that they just printed in this issue because they had it.
Yeah, kind of.
So I feel like I was falsely advertised to, because there's a little thing at the corner of the start of the story where it's like, you may be wondering how the Freedom Fighters were captured. Well, let me explain. And then it still don't actually show that. The Freedom Fighters is just like, oh, we got a cool camera. And it's like, and then they went off and didn't return.
Yeah, and this apparently takes place concurrently with the first story, which only goes to show how pointless a lot of the excursions in that story were. And it's, you know, there's really not a lot to it. The Freedom Fighters rush out to fight some SWAT bots, I guess, and they get captured. However that may happen, there's like, you know, 5 of them, and a couple of them are pretty good at fighting, actually. Fighting completely normal mooks.
Yeah, it's been done enough times already in these comics. I didn't really bring it up, but it always annoys me when there's a story that relies on, you know, the heroes losing for at least somewhat, and then they just don't. Either they don't do it well, or they don't even show it at all.
Yeah, it's
like make that interesting.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it would be one thing if, you know, you say, oh, well, one's not a threat on their own, but, you know, a giant pile of them. You know, you're having a big, you know, 1,000-man fight like the second Matrix movie with SWAT bots or something. I don't know, but it's not like that. There's just a few of them, and it's up to Team Bland to defeat them. Which is that's of course the antagonists of the next generation of Pokemon Ketchup and Mustard.
Team Bland, yes. Well, yeah, so it's Sally's folks, and then it's Cyril, who I did not ever think I would see again.
Yeah, I was saying, oh, he should have been roboticized last episode, but apparently he shows up again. I forgot.
And then it's one I would never forget about, Larry Lynx, because he demonstrates just how ridiculous he is as he just walks in front of a bunch of SWAT bots and then they kill each other. Like, why isn't this guy on the A-team? He's literally unbeatable.
Because his powers are allegedly, but not in practice, unreliable.
Yes, you demonstrate the point.
Well, and it's all of this to allegedly establish them as the Freedom Fighter official B team, the substitute Freedom Fighters. It's like you could just be more Freedom Fighters. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. So we could have like an A team and a B team, but saying, oh, they're the substitute Freedom Fighters, that implies that the usual team are the main Freedom Fighters, which I guess they are. But
it's a case of like
they're the most important.
They only operate when our regular guys are not available.
Exactly.
What are they doing?
Yeah, that's stupid.
It's because these comics are obsessed with all their freedom fighter groups, you know, in the Down Under, the 40 Fathoms, and so you gotta also have the substitute as well, so you can have all these freedom fighter groups. I guess I don't know.
They gotta do like what One Piece did with the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, where they just take every minor backup character they introduced and make them into one like amorphous army that they can just send out if they need.
Oh my gosh. I'd like to point out that I was like, what the heck, Sonic? Why did you save Robotnik? And this comic reveals that apparently as soon as they got back from the other Robotnik universe, The Robotnik immediately betrayed them. Like,
Of course.
yeah, obviously. It's just funny.
I'm getting emotional. A bad kind of emotion. So, yeah, dumb, weird, pointless story for characters that really still do not have much of a place after this anyway.
You have to question, though, was Larry Lynx brought back because people asked for it?
They probably got one letter, and they're like, hey, this guy liked Larry Lynx.
Yeah,
That's the person who created Larry Lynx. And like, I can bring back my character now.
Yeah, you know, it's entirely possible. Although this is written by Kozlowski, who is the only other story that he's written so far is the Bunny Nightmare story, which we liked that one. So what happened? Maybe it's just that, like, you know, they were rooting through letters and they're like, oh, well, we've got one letter that says please bring back Larry Lynx, and we've got 30 letters that say please let Amy Rose be a main character. I think we should go with the Larry one.
I will say, I always appreciate that these comics bring back elements, even if they're stupid and I don't care about them at all. Yeah. I do like that these characters are coming back again because, I mean, it makes it feel like it's a universe that things happen and they stick, and I just eat that stuff up.
Yeah. I suppose. I just wish that they were capable of carrying a story on their own.
No, it would be nice if there was anything beyond that, but I'll give them some credit.
Yeah.
It feels bad, though, because I'm assuming none of these characters are probably going to show up in any major capacity again.
Not a lot. I mean, they technically don't disappear.
I'm assuming they'll be like background characters.
With a line here or two. Here or two? Man, I'm really not talking right. You know the word that I meant to say.
Yeah, I knew what you meant.
I totally forgot about Cyril, though. I didn't even remember he was part of this team, even when I remember this story.
Well, it's actually random if you think about it. I should actually take away some of the credit, because Cyril was off with his family. Like, he was, like, nowhere with the Freedom Fighters, and suddenly he's just here with no explanation.
I mean, it's been a while.
The rest of his family died.
Yeah, they
nice to at least have a line or something about, like, glad to have you on. I'm glad that, you know, you decided to join the fight, because initially he was, like, you know, demotivated. So that would be, like, character development or something.
Yeah, that's too much to ask for this comic sometimes. At least for these side characters.
Well, let's get into the final and easily the best story of this issue, for no other reason than because of the artwork, because we have Knuckles Quest 2, which sounds like a video game, but isn't, which is written by Kent Taylor, who I keep needing to mention is Scott Fulop, which I'm pretty sure that, like, the editors have to sort of buy stories from writers, so is he buying from himself? I don't know how that works.
Writing himself a check.
I guess. I'm surprised that he didn't get in legal trouble for that. Maybe it's that he's not currently active as an editor, because Justin Gabri is, I think, the editor at this point. What's important, though, is that it's drawn by Spaziant. Knuckles finds the first mage from the Ancient Walker's message, who directs him toward the Land of Dark if he wants to find the Sword of Acorns.
So, we're just back to a bunch of nonsense. I mean, you know, you look at the cover and there's a big old beast with a mouth. And you go in and there's, like, cheetahs and skeletons and a bunch of monsters for no reason.
Yeah, he starts off fighting a cacodemon or a beholder.
Yeah.
I mean, cacodemons are based off of beholders.
Beholders, I think, of having more than one eye, though. It only has one.
The point is, Knuckles fights a lot of fantasy creatures, and the most terrifying of all being a bald guy.
Oh, no.
The bald guy has, like, massive tits.
They're like veins bulging, and now I'm looking at, I think he may actually have a ponytail despite being mostly bald.
Are those on the front of his face? His eyebrows?
Those are his eyebrows, yeah.
Okay, I was thinking they're either his eyebrows or like that halo hairstyle that priests used to wear.
Oh yeah, it's Friar Tuck.
Also, Devin, cheetahs are not mythical creatures.
I've never seen them.
But they call them
blood beasts, they call them.
Yeah, blood beasts. So, like, they are supposed to be, even though they just look like cheetahs.
Well, they do look like slightly fucked up cheetahs. Like, their upper body is like... They look like weird Pokemon, actually.
Well, they have like tentacles.
Oh shit! Yeah, they have tentacles. Never mind. I didn't.
Oh, it's kind of hard to see because these
It
creatures
does,
only
yeah.
appear for like a little bit. He defeats Knuckles defeats them all in quick succession.
Yeah, they're there for like 2 frames.
Yeah, they get 2 panels. He defeats the Beholder in. Well, it shows up for 1 panel, and then you see part of it in 2 panels. And then
Right.
Buff Dude gets 2 panels, I guess 1.5. Dragon is only in 1 panel. Death himself, I guess, is the third guy, 1 panel. And in case there was any doubt about this, I do want to mention that this whole quest that Knuckles goes on, because this is a backup story for a while, but this whole quest that he goes on allegedly is based off an actual D&D campaign that Penders took part in.
Interesting.
Penders plays D&D?
Wait,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
weird.
I don't think so, because he's
seem the sort.
an old school nerd, so because that's why we get all the Star Trek stuff from him.
Fair.
Interesting.
Huh.
I have to imagine this was probably more interesting as a campaign.
I mean, so I think the problem is a lot of the Knuckles Quest stories, at least the first few, are like 4 pages, so they're not very interesting because they're just like in your face, like bam, 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 we're doing the do.
And then he doesn't get the sword.
Yeah, and then he doesn't get the sword.
Well, no, yeah, that's the thing, is no progression at all.
Yeah, it's always a place that leads to a place that leads to a place that might lead to the sword.
Yeah.
The only major contribution this story has for Archie Sonic as a whole is the introduction of Merlin Prower.
Yeah, so I was going to bring that up if you didn't. And at the very end, as a side remark, I almost missed it, but I happened to actually be reading the words instead of just skimming it because it wasn't very interesting.
I must have just skimmed it. I didn't even notice his name was Prower.
Yeah.
He's a wizard, and he's Tails' uncle, I think.
That's interesting, looking at Tails' future being the engineer.
Well, and it's just a weird juxtaposition in general. Even when we meet Tails' dad, I don't think that he has nearly any kind of textual relationship with this man. He just kind of hangs around.
Okay, so it's a side. I thought it was like a side remark because, like, oh, they'll build on it later. No, of course they wouldn't.
Yeah, so very weird, very very weird special, and you can skip this one, guys. If you read these comics, you can skip this one.
Yeah.
A comic like this straight up could not be printed today.
Yeah, honestly.
And it makes it an interesting historical artifact, but as a special, it does not... I would not say it ranks well among them. My question is this entertaining such that it can beat out a really bland issue like Sonic and Knuckles?
Yeah, no, I'd say probably just because this is less bland. Yeah, I think this one actually is above that one.
All right.
So my problem is that I think this is a different level of weirdly bad that I find it hard to rank it along the same level of any of the other bad specials.
Yeah, well, because it's there's a certain amount of ironic enjoyment in this, just in how utterly bizarre it is that it exists. Whereas with Sonic and Knuckles, it makes perfect sense that it exists. It's just not very fun to read.
Right. On one hand, I want to agree that, yeah, it's better than some of the bad issues we've read. But on the other hand,
it's still bad.
It's bad, but it's like it's bad in an extremely different way that I find hard to quantify and relate to the other issues we've read.
We can just call it a tie if we want.
I mean, I guess it's up to democracy.
Well, I mean,
Lauren
you're just saying you don't have a rank for it.
So yeah,
really
not,
he
it's like you're
have
abstaining from the
opinion.
vote.
And
yeah, I guess
it's a tie.
I think I'm gonna have to abstain from voting.
Okay, well, that puts me and Lauren on equal footing, in which case, I'm gonna just move on, I think. I guess I don't care anymore.
I mean, fair enough.
Okay.
Fucking fair enough.
In the realm of more respectable writings, we have Sonic the Hedgehog, number 43.
I like this cover.
It's a cool cover.
We're gonna get all historical.
Hell yeah. They're getting historical enough.
Yeah, which, since it's on the cover, I like the way they do the flashbacks in terms of coloration. It's like the colors are muted and you've got sort of this brown over everything.
Yeah, it's sepia toned, and interestingly, the story for this issue is The Dream Zone, written by Penders, and it's drawn by Gallon and Spaziant, where Gallon does all of the scenes in the present, Spaziant does all of the sepia toned flashbacks.
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Where the freedom fighters use advanced technology to try and stop the spread of crystallization on King Max. I'm not sure how I feel. I got ahead of the story and then behind it here. Not sure how I feel about this title page with Sonic and Jeffrey both putting their hands on crying Sally.
I don't like Jeffrey, that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Well, it's partially that, and also I like Sally getting to be an action girl, and so having her like womanly emotions be in focus on so much artwork, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. But it's weird, especially since she's not really like that in the issue.
Yeah, not really.
Right. Just another it's not a cover page, it's an inner cover page, not being accurate to the story.
Yeah. Speaking of the story, we start off with a new Penders' favorite character here, Dr. Quack.
I don't want my doctor being named a quack.
Okay. First of all, that's literally acknowledged in the story. Like, it's a joke.
Yeah.
I don't like your stupid wordplay. Stop it. But, I mean, he's just a duck at the end of the day. But, I don't know. I mean, I think Dr. Quack is okay. I do think it's kind of cute that, like, he has a fondness for Sally because he delivered her.
Right. That's cute. That is cute.
He seems like he's trying to be, like, a fast-talking, like, cool guy all the time, which is really weird as he's just sucking on a lollipop the whole time, which that's not sanitary, but yeah, we're basically, we've got a big machine here with the king in it, which, is like we've discussed a lot about, like, oh, is trying to cure roboticization medical or mechanical? And so is trying to cure magic crystal illness medical or like magical,
Yes.
And the answer is that we're basically like shooting the king with microwaves or something.
Cellular regenerator or something is what they call it. They don't really explain it. It's just a thing that Rotor made because Rotor is very smart.
And apparently we need just a normal surgeon here for that. But
I'm not a fan of how human-like King Acorn's body is.
Yeah, I think that Gallon's art is slowly but steadily improving, but I wouldn't say that it's 100% at this point. But in any case, we get a flashback here, that's the one that's drawn by Spaziant, where we can see a lot of Robotnik's takeover.
Yeah, so I don't know, I really like this era of the comics / Sad AM. I just find it interesting, and I would be down for, like, I don't know, a mini-series or something that just completely took place in this time period.
Well, it's because the battle against Robotnik and the Freedom Fighters, we've established such a status quo precedent for that whenever we see anything that happened beforehand, and especially during Robotnik's takeover, we don't really have a complete picture. I don't think there's too much information here that's really that different from, like, the Sad AM time travel episodes, but the fact that how badly things are going to get makes it intriguing.
No, so yeah, it is very reminiscent of the Sad AM time travel episodes, to the point that there is a bit where Robotnik has, like, almost word for word one of my favorite scenes in Sad AM, where he says in the comic, "Your Majesty, members of the royal court, I've now assumed command. Henceforth, Mobotropolis is Robotropolis, the capital of my kingdom."
It's pretty good.
Like, it's almost exactly the same line, and so that's interesting. Also, I love that they put that in.
They kind of are mining a Sad AM for parts, so to speak, and well, I think it should be telling that all of those parts work better than most of their original ideas, but I'm laughing because I just said that and then I flipped to the next page and fucking Jeffrey walks in.
That's a good example.
We could deal with two smug prick characters from Penders at the same time between him and the Doctor. Although, as much as they're mostly just fiddling around with the gadgets or snarking at each other in the main story, we do finally here get to see the actual moment in which Robotnik banishes King Max to the Zone of Silence. Albeit while quoting the Lion King, but you know. And they do an interesting thing with all that, because as we've been seeing the flashbacks, you know, there's one thing after another, and it's like, it's mostly relevant to the story, but you realize at a certain point, once Max wakes up and starts screaming, that these aren't just flashbacks, these are literally his memories that he's going through at the same time.
Right.
So we're sort of seeing inside his head.
Yeah. I was about to bring up the fact, if you rewind a moment, that Robotnik presents his roboticizer and says his roboticizer, and I'm like, that's interesting. If this is supposed to parallel the time travel episode, why don't they reveal that Chuck made it? Because that was when they revealed it. But I guess if it's in the King's head, he would have no way of knowing that.
Right.
Because Robotnik would just take all the credit if he's literally just remembering what Robotnik said.
Right.
So, yeah.
And, you know, the revelation that it is all in his head makes, you know, for the second part of the story, where they have to wire Sonic up and astral project him into his mind.
Yeah, and so Jeffrey wants to go in, and Sonic is like, no, and they flip a coin, and I do like the joke that Tails is on the Tails side of the coin, but why do they have a coin with Tails on it?
What's on the head side?
Where's
the Sonic character named Heads?
I guess, well, maybe we'll see them later, I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, so inside Max's head, you know, you have the much more sane Max in, you know, his memory version of the Zone of Silence. And they're like, oh, we gotta get you out of here. Which, spoiler warning, they kind of don't. Like, even after they cure the well, they don't cure the crystallization, but they stop it spreading, but he's still not, like, sane at that point.
Right.
Instead, this is used to basically just exposit on other stuff we're going to see a little bit more of in the future.
So, yeah, interesting. They do actually go a bit more into what happened in the Zone of Silence, so I like that. It just feels a little backwards, taking him out and then working back. But yeah, apparently is just this big old thing. I don't know what animal that is. Feist is what they call it.
Feist is a panda, I think. Although I don't know what the hell he's supposed to be. This is one of the weirdest characters that Penders ever came up with, and Penders never wrote this character again. Flynn did stuff with him, but he just kind of created this guy and then left him there. Ditto for Robotnik's mentor, Warlord Kodos here. I think Penders might have done a little bit more of him, but the majority of his content will come from Carl Ballers in the future. But I get what you're saying overall, in that we just got the King out of the Zone of Silence, where it was also showing us events from his past, so it would make sense to show those events then rather than now.
Right.
Well, plus it almost feels like a retcon, because it's like, I thought that previously we saw it when the King first came into the zone, because he was like floating around disoriented, but suddenly, no, that was after he got attacked here, apparently.
Yeah, and a mention, but no actual visual sign of Naugus being here. They say Ixis, I think, but
right.
Well, and now that I'm saying this, now that we're thinking about this, that would make it make way more sense, because if you didn't have all of the Sonic inside Max's brain stuff, because you saw all the flashbacks during the Zone of Silence issue, you know, since that had plenty of frigging story real estate, because none of the other stuff really mattered in that issue, then all of the ring gathering and stuff in the Death Egg saga could be to just keep him from being more crystallized, and then it would have more consequence.
Right.
Yeah, but for some reason, just like talking to him and being like, you have to realize this isn't real or whatever, that cures the crystallization. I don't get how that works. Or it doesn't cure it, it stops it from spreading. That still doesn't make sense, though.
It's just a variation on the power of friendship.
Right, I guess so.
And the thing about that is that I think that it totally makes sense that, because, you know, if as someone who knows why the crystallization even happens, which I don't think they explain in this issue, it actually totally makes sense that you could mentally get Max to fight off the crystallization himself. But the fact that Sonic says, but above all else, Sally needs her father, makes me think, why didn't you guys put Sally in here? If anybody's able to convince the king, it would be her.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, true.
That's a damn good point.
Sally's not the main character now.
Yeah,
Put them
there we
both
go.
in there.
I mean,
No,
yeah.
No, yeah. I was being dumb.
No, I figured you were being facetious. So it's an issue with a lot of good ideas, but they don't quite mesh in my opinion. It's still definitely the best issue of tonight, I think.
Yeah, the actual main plot is like, whatever. But I dig those flashbacks. I always like that.
The way the flashbacks are done is pretty good. I do enjoy that.
And it's interesting, it's interspersed in the story too. You see it bit by bit. So yeah, just for that reason, I enjoyed it pretty well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we actually only have 4 issues today, just because next week we're gonna have a slightly different setup. But our next issue here is Sonic number 44, and we're back to evil, guys.
We're back to the mirror universe.
Yeah.
Because all they have to do is just come across the interstate any old time they feel like.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's still a nice looking cover, but
yeah, I do find it interesting that we're going to see Anti-Knuckles as well.
Yeah, I believe his only appearance actually in the whole series.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, the story for this one is Black and Blue and Red All Over, written by Penders, drawn by Gallen. After evil Sonic and evil Knuckles show up to steal Angel Island's Chaos Emeralds, everyone travels to Anti-Mobius to figure out what's going on. It turns out Anti-Evil Knuckles' island is underwater and needs Chaos Emeralds to sustain oxygen. Robotnik is of course behind this, and the Knuckleses work together to save the Atlantean utopia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We'll work our way through that. That's a good summary. On the first page of the issue, we start with, I remember this, the Party Hearty Quadrasonic Rock and Roller. That it's a big gun that they gave to Rotor for some reason.
I guess because Rotor needed some way to fight.
Well, I could totally see Rotor being the gun guy, but that...
Oh, yeah.
The opposite of that ends up actually happening over the course of the series. So a lot of just weird little gags to start here. I think they're... What are they, like, grilling burgers on that panel? They look orange.
It looks like it.
Man, this begs the question I think I asked previously.
Are you asking where they get the meat from?
I think I know what you're getting.
Yeah, what are those burgers made of? Because we've seen like Mobian, like farm animals, like bipedal sentient Mobian, like the pig fucker.
To be clear, that you're saying the fucker who is a pig, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, they have realistic quote-unquote animals on Mobius, so I guess from that, it's still weird.
For all intents and purposes, they are also animals.
So are humans versus...
I was talking to Kayla about this last week, and that was the argument she used with me, was, we're animals that eat animals, but, like, feels less weird because, like, we are the apex of the apex species. Like,
humans don't call themselves dogs and chickens.
Right, yeah, exactly. We call ourselves humans. Like, universally, we separate ourselves from those animals. Whereas the Mobians, I'm sure that they do, but it feels weird to separate, like, a Mobian cow from, like, a cat, from, like, cattle.
This is something that I think that the comics make worse, because the comics more explicitly give them animal traits, and especially like Penders is constantly on record trying to make them more animalistic, speciesistic, which is partially just because he wants echidnas to be an alien species that he can turn into Kryptonians or whatever, but it's a case of, Sonic characters are very much just metaphors for humans, so when you introduce elements that make them less that, it starts to bring up all these questions. That's why the BoJack Horseman episode Chickens is the worst episode of the series, because every other part of that show, it doesn't actually matter that half the characters are, an elephant on a regular dude's body. And this is the same case where it's like, what? And this has nothing to do with the issue, of course, but I get why it's bothersome, is because it's like...
Right, it's like, it makes you start thinking like, hold on a second. No,
So while we're on the topic of weird, not important observations, why do the freedom fighters have a plane with like an animal face on it? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, it has a nose and a mouth and a muzzle. I guess it's meant to kind of look like Sonic. I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
Anyway, Anti-Sonic and Anti-Knuckles show up to steal the Chaos Emerald on Angel Island, and that's what's actually important here.
Yeah, and Anti-Knuckles is Scottish for some reason.
Oh, I thought he was Irish?
No, with the beret, 100% Scottish. Plus, his weird writing is very Scottish.
But he says, I'm not one to trifle with once I get me Irish up, so that was why I thought he was Irish.
Everything else he says is very Scottish.
Well, the beret also brings to mind, like, the IRA, but...
So I'm thinking that the writers didn't know what they were doing.
They couldn't tell the difference between Ireland and Scotland.
They just combined
Probably
them.
it, actually.
Yeah, they either didn't know that they couldn't figure out the difference, or couldn't figure out how to write a difference between the accents, so just combined the two countries.
Quality comic.
I would have it no other way.
Hey, it does have some important firsts, though, like Sonic arrives on Angel Island, and there's actually no animosity between him and Knuckles for once.
Yeah, for once, they don't immediately start off by trying to kill each other.
Yeah, that's actually, like, shocking. And maybe it's because Sally is right there immediately, and Knuckles has already gotten attacked by someone else.
Yeah, Knuckles already fought Anti-Sonic once, so, his brain doesn't have to work that hard to figure out that, oh, this isn't the same Sonic that just tried to rob me. Or, excuse me, successfully robbed me.
Well, I was about to say, because Sonic did try to rob him last week.
That's true. Again, I think as we said, though, that could have been easily dealt with by Sonic just fucking explaining why he was there.
Yeah, it's alright. We got Sally to, like, auspicicize between them, so we can just work together. And they take the plane on the Cosmic Interstate.
Because that's how that works. Interdimensional travel on plane.
Why not?
Take a fucking 747 to an alternate universe.
and while they're doing this, we get Sally recounting a little bit of her alleged childhood interactions with Knuckles, which I think are drawn by Spaziant, just because they were the flashbacks from the last issue.
They look better than the rest of the issue, so I'm willing to say probably.
Sally's entire anatomy transforms between the last panel of that and the next Gallon panel, so I think so.
Do you have to say this though? I meant to mention this in the last issue. Baby Sonic and Baby Sally have really big heads.
Oh, they're hideous.
Even this child Sally has a surprisingly large cranium.
And just so spindly. Her arms are so skinny.
Yeah, it looks like her entire body's going to just break under the weight of her head.
You say that Locke becomes a horrible character, and I'm starting to see it more and more, because apparently Knuckles wasn't allowed to meet anyone, which that's a great way to raise a child, isolate them, seclude them. That'll be good.
Yeah, Locke doesn't come off as the best father.
Well, and this is not long before he jumps into a wall of fire and pretends to kill himself. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I gotta tally up his horrible crimes. But yes, moving along. They're really pushing this whole Sally and Knuckles history thing, which is disappointing.
Right.
You told me there's nothing. This isn't important. They just keep bringing it up for some reason.
To me, at least, it's felt like some of the writers are trying to push Knuckles as a third part of a love square or love triangle.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm okay. I'm glad it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, no, I don't want it to go anywhere. Or trying to push Knuckles as into a love. Is that a triangle or a square?
Listen, having played Sonic Frontiers, it would be a love triangle, because the only way for a love triangle to be a true triangle is for someone to be gay. And Sonic Frontiers, Sonic flirts with Knuckles more than Amy in that game.
That is very true. That is very fucking true.
I'm looking forward to Frontiers.
They got some interesting, fun, semi-flirting between Sonic and Knuckles. It's really fun.
which unfortunately we don't get with Anti-Sonic and Anti-Knuckles, who finally show up here too.
That's
Anti-Sonic,
right.
Yeah.
Anti-Sonic and Anti-Knuckles finally fight Sonic and Knuckles, and well, it kind of just stops because Anti-Knuckles explains that he's not a particularly bad dude and is actually just trying to help his own island.
Anti-Knuckles is like Scottish Knuckles.
Yeah, he's not really evil at all.
Or excuse me, it's like Skyrish Knuckles.
Skyrish. Yes. Yeah, it's a shame he doesn't show up again.
Yeah, that's disappointing to hear.
I kind of like Anti-Knuckles, especially the way he bounces off of regular Knuckles, because they fight, and then he's like, I will not fight you. And Knuckles is like, why? And then he's like, well, I won't do it. And then Knuckles is like, even though, like, your island is in trouble, and, like, it's the classic, I will encourage my enemy moment, and that's just awesome, because he's like, you're disgrace to echidnas.
It's yeah.
You brought it up during the summary. I just get a kick out of the fact that, oh yeah, I guard the sunken island. That's just silly, but I like it.
Literally everything has to be opposite.
It's also like, how does that work? Because shouldn't having Chaos Emeralds raise it out of the water?
No, because in this universe, Chaos Emeralds make things sink.
Okay,
I know.
But if they're trying to steal Knuckles' Chaos Emerald, does that mean that the laws of physics change between dimensions? I guess that makes more sense than specific objects.
I'm assuming the Chaos Emeralds themselves are not what's causing Angel Island, or Emeralds now, are not what's causing Emerald Island to float. It's what's powering the method of Angel Island floating.
I always thought it was just emerald magic like in the games. I guess it could be something else.
Also, I assume in the context of the comics. In the games, the Master Emerald is all powerful and...
Well, because the Chaos Chamber always has stuff wired up to it, so I guess it's possible.
Right. It's powering some sort of, like, I don't know, anti-gravity bullshit.
Yeah, that's possible.
That's my guess, at least. And in this universe, the echidnas decided to sink Angel Island. Or, I guess, Devil Island? I don't know.
Well, it's not called Angel Island in the comics.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to keep calling it Angel Island.
I like that.
Yes, I like
that. Yeah, so, relative to the actual story here, the climax is just, like, about as generic as you can get. They just go in, it's like, oh, Anti-Sonic is working with Robotnik, as fucking usual. It's all Robotnik's fault. They beat him up, they get some emeralds. Actually, they get a big emerald, which is not the Master Emerald.
The giant emerald is actually just the Chaos Emerald from the floating island that's just giant for no explained reason. The little emeralds are all the emeralds from Devil Island that Robotnik had stolen. They were just released when his machine exploded. But yeah, I don't know why it's giant for some reason. It makes sense that you'd think it was a different one. It's not, though.
Right.
I do like that, likewise, there was a dynamic between the two Knuckles, and Robotnik is like, oh, I'm doing this horrible plan, and Anti-Sonic is like, oh, that's great. And he's like totally down with it, but then Robotnik's just like, no, I don't like hedgehogs. Apparently he just has a thing against hedgehogs. So he's like, no, you can't work with me.
Yeah. It's fine, I guess.
It's a kind of fun reverse or mirror universe story, but it doesn't feel very impactful. Like, it feels very fillery.
Well,
I guess,
yeah,
I guess it's me making it worse by saying that Anti-Knuckles never shows up again. You know, maybe if you thought that he would have been... But I guess you can't define it by its relation to theoretical comics.
So even when I thought that Anti-Knuckles wasn't going to be a one-time thing, I still was thinking, like, it's a little underwhelming. But it's fine. It's nothing special.
I've never had as much of a problem, I think, as either of you with the anti-universe. And yeah, I mean, there are still many just sort of... They put something together stories, and they're not really trying super hard with it. And I definitely prefer this over like the Substitute Freedom Fighters or something.
I can agree with that.
It's at least interesting, and there's at least enough details that you can read into it deeper than the writers probably intended you to.
Right.
And if there's at least that, then I'll be a little entertained.
Yeah, and we, if nothing else, we get to see Sonic and Knuckles be cool and work together for once.
Yes, that's always nice to see.
That was a
Without any
nice
kind of
change of
controversy.
pace.
Yes, it's always nice to see those two actually working together.
Well, I think we should move on to our final issue of the night, which is the final 48-page special. I mean, it's not the last special, but this was the last special before they started calling them the Sonic Super Specials. This is Sonic Blast, but not that Sonic Blast. This is actually an adaptation of Sonic 3D Blast.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you even adapt Game Gear Sonic Blast? It doesn't even have a plot.
All the more reason to adapt it.
Oh yeah, now we can add more echidnas and alternate selves. Yeah, no, it's Flicky's Island, and pretty cool cover. I like the cover.
Yeah.
Not that that's anything surprising from Spaziant, but what do you want?
Right.
Yeah, and it's an entire special. We had an entire special full of Penders stuff earlier tonight, and this is an entire special with no Penders at all, I believe. Starting with our first story, which is just Sonic Blast, written by Gallagher, drawn by Mawini. Robotnik travels to and subsequently terrorizes Flicky Island in search of the Chaos Emeralds. It's up to Sonic, Tails, and Rotor to pursue him and free the island from something. I didn't finish that summary. I think it was probably pretty late when I was recording notes.
So I don't know what is this obsession that the editors have. There's literally an editor note on the summary that the zone is the same zones you enter in the Sega games. Like, why? And they do it again in the exact same issue as well when it shows up on page 9. Like, what?
This must have been something on high from management, because when we used to see them before, they were coming from Scott Fulp, but now they're coming from Gabri. So it's like, no matter which editor it is, we're still getting this.
Maybe they just expect children to have really bad memories.
Apparently.
I guess. I will say I like the first page here because I kind of miss the barely contained hostility between Snively and Robotnik that we get here.
I appreciate it more because it doesn't just turn into a dumb side gag. Because this feels a lot. I was like, is this just going to be another instance of the dumb side plot from Sonic Quest, which he references? But no, it's literally just a joke here at the beginning, and then it doesn't happen again. So Snively is smarter about his treachery this time, which is good.
Actually might have some background operations, perhaps.
Mm.
What is less good is that Sonic is sort of apprehensive part of here, because he does indeed worry about something potentially going on between Knuckles and Sally, because she waited until last issue to explain why she couldn't tell them before, which is definitely a retcon. But it's like, oh god, is he gonna be like a jealous, shitty guy? But no, thankfully. That's reserved for stories that contain Jeffrey.
Yeah.
She also almost kisses him, even though it looks more like she's gonna spit in his mouth.
It's drawn weirdly.
And once again, I have to bring up, I'm really tired of the relationship drama. It feels forced. Like, it doesn't need to be there.
I think it's mostly just that it's not very good. I think if they were good at writing it, I would have different things to say about it.
You know, I feel like even if it was good, I would still feel fairly similar to the idea that just, I don't want it here.
Yeah.
Certainly doesn't help with the quality, though.
Yeah, the quality itself is bad, it feels forced, and that doesn't help me wanting it here.
Well, and it's inconsistent with a lot of the stuff that we've seen already, because, like, Sally is, like, super nervous about the idea of kissing Sonic, which, A, they've kissed plenty of times in this comic already, and B, they were snogging face, or whatever the linguisticism is, you know, like every other episode in Sad AM.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a different continuity.
At AM,
I know, but it's like that. I feel like
they have never done any outright like lip-to-lip kisses in this comic. It's always been like cheek pecks.
I know, but this is, you know, during an era where they're Sad AM-ifying it, so it's like you might at least have made Sally not so timid.
I know, but you know,
because
cheek pecks are very different than like a whole-on snogging. Because that's a very useful word, Devin. I think I want to thank you for reusing it.
For me, it's just that no matter how much they were making out in Sat AM, they at least had a good character dynamic. So if that had been here, I would have appreciated it better.
I mean, even in Sat AM, I was a little like, does this need to be in my children's cartoon?
You just don't want to. You don't want to watch the furries making out.
Well, that's also true. That kiss at the end, towards the end of Sat AM, was like kind of uncomfortable.
Okay.
I thought it was fine in Sat AM, but let's move on. Yeah,
let's head for Flicky Island.
Yeah.
I like that we open on Robotnik here on Flicky Island. He doesn't have any kind of like mech going on. He's just wandering around going, "Hey, Flickies, now get in the roboticider."
I love this. This is like a new side of Robotnik. Like when he's on his own and there's no Sonic and he doesn't need it, apparently he's perfectly content just running around doing whatever he needs to do himself, which is hilarious.
Maybe he's gotten to the point where he just feels like he can't rely on anyone but himself to do something.
Right, not even his machines that are always defective in some way.
Right, he's like, fuck this, I'm gonna do this myself. Also, you don't remember, were there Chaos Emeralds in 3D Blast?
Yes, but we didn't get any of them because that game is bad.
True.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't finish 3D Blast also.
Because the game is bad.
Yes, it is because the game is bad.
So we travel into Flicky Island and getting swarmed by Robo Flickies, which are the closest thing that this comic has to badniks with just animals inside them. Because I don't think normal badniks in this comic have Flickies inside them. I'm actually not sure now that I'm saying that.
I don't think so. I think they're just like sentient robots.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's just roboticization.
We don't have animal-powered badniks yet.
Right. Yet I hear.
Well, yeah, these comics get more in line with the games as you go on.
Well, yeah, I do know that. That is, I'm aware of that.
But at the moment, they're trying to play both sides and have a weird average between the games and the comic. Right. And so you get weird interactions like Sonic splashing water on the Flickies, and that de-roboticizes them to simulate how they pop out in the games. How does that make any sense? And he's nonchalant about it, too. He's like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes in zones, just like the zones in the Sonic the Hedgehog action games.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is fun that they're having that conversation while Tails is drowning, at least. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. They also come out spouting their own names like Pokemon.
I feel like even in 3D Blast they were. But that game's bad, so I've removed it from my memory.
Speaking of things that are, not that, something that is unforgettable is this extremely weird sequence where they're having more robots come at them, and Sonic scoops up a handful of water, makes a ball out of it. He, like, turns it into, like, a Rasengan and throws it at the bird.
Yeah, he starts throwing Hadokens of water.
That's not...
So, I don't think that would work, even if you did move, like, infinitely fast, like, he seems to move as fast as he needs, as fast as he feels like. But once again, I'm not a fan of Sonic just being able to move super fast even and do weird stuff. Like, you can be creative with your speed, but
I think the like super fast and Sonic I feel like Sonic's ability to move fast is like one thing, but then he does all this stuff that is like tangentially related to moving fast.
Well, like, and it's like he runs at the he runs at the speed of sound, but then he does this in 0.0. There's like 13 zeros and then a 1 of a millisecond, which is like that may actually be somewhere around the speed of light.
Also,
he's literally said he's faster than the speed of light before, so he is, at least at this point in the comics.
And you know, he's
Sonic actually fights Robotnik one-on-one, which is what we're talking about with the speed of light thing, because he says that because Robotnik tries to hit Sonic, but he hits an afterimage that Sonic says he made by moving at double the speed of light.
It's so over the top, I kind of like it, but yeah, Sonic and Robotnik have like this drawn-out battle, just mano-a-mano, and they pull out all sorts of random stuff that's never been shown before, like Robotnik's neural disruption field, or their pladmantium cape controlled by electromagnetics. And then Sonic can vibrate the atoms in the cape to cut through it. Like, what is going on?
Oh my god.
If you're wondering why half of the characters in Archie Sonic are listed as being absurdly universe-shatteringly strong by power scalers, it's because stuff like this is considered canon.
We kind of skipped past it, but before they fight, I do like, again, we were talking about it before, but Robotnik is basically just playing 3D Blast here, because he's just jumping around, even going through the rings that are in the games, which, first of all, that's kind of impressive. I like how accurate this adaptation actually is, to an extent I wouldn't expect, and it's funny that we're seeing Robotnik playing through it instead of Sonic.
Yeah, in terms of landscapes and actually using the landscapes, this might be the most accurate game adaptation so far. Like, obviously the story doesn't quite make any sense, but this is definitely Rusty Ruin.
Yeah, no, the looks of it is like, everything's on point.
In terms of plot, though, it's weird, because it's like we've enjoyed various parts of this, but it is also pretty generic plot-wise, because, you know, nothing really of consequence has happened by the end. He loses the Chaos Emerald. They just leave him there, and well, I wish that they leaving him on the island had been a good decision, but you know it isn't.
Well, so yeah,
it's funny because it's like, you know, Rotor stays out of the action for most of this. It would be funny if, like, Sonic's like, all right, we're just gonna leave him here, guys, and then Rotor pulls out one of his new guns that says, "Not today."
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a fun enough story. It's completely bonkers in terms of how it relates to the character's abilities, but it's not boring.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's solid enough.
The other two stories in this special, both written by Angelo De Cesare and both drawn by Dave Monach, are completely out there and, like, nothing about anything. The first one is the Tough Awards, where Sonic and Sally host a Freedom Fighters Awards show. It's exactly what it sounds like it would be.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to lose points here. They had a chance to at least bring in some continuity, because way back there was another awards one-page story, but they're like, no, it's the first annual Tough Awards. They could have tied it in. It could have been another awards ceremony. But no, it's just completely different. Two people just had similar ideas. So you lose all possible points, and I'm disappointed. You had a chance, and you blew it.
And it's weird, because Gallagher worked on this issue, so, like, you could have had him write this. I'm pretty sure the other one was definitely drawn by Monarch, too, so I don't know.
But
and this is
really
2 pages. I don't even know if it's worth qualifying as a story. It's just like, what else are you gonna do? In fact, you're looking at both pages right now. I don't even feel that bad about showing this in full, because it's like, what do you say about it? It's the same gags that you expect from this series that I kind of wish we had left behind by now, to be honest.
I really thought we had. We've seen a little bit of it coming up to this point, but it's been mostly going away for more continuity-based stories instead of just, the story is a joke.
Yeah.
So I think what it is for these big specials specifically, they want to be like, oh, it's a 48-page special. So they need to fill it up. And so sometimes they just have to have these, probably just backup stories they already had ready just to
probably inventory.
Make it the whole special.
Well, and that's the thing, is that I suspect Dave Monach, we've criticized his art in the past. It is nothing if not consistent. I bet that he is very fast as an artist. I bet he can get all these done really quickly.
Probably.
That's why so many of them are like this.
I think that's also probably why he's not really doing full issues anymore, or very much anymore.
Yeah. The same goes for our last story of this issue, Bugged Bunny, where Robotnik and Snively plant a tracking device on Bunny, and she basically just wastes their time as they follow her around.
Yeah, it's just silliness, as Robotnik and Snively are dressed up in plant costumes because of reasons.
Yeah. It's like, I like getting Bunny stories, but this
a lot of
exactly
Bunny's
the deepest.
Yeah, Bunny's stories oftentimes feel very surface level, or just like gags.
Well, this is the second solo bunny story, I think.
True.
I mean, there's that
I
other
guess-
one with Antoine where it's kind of both of them.
Oh, yeah, arguably, but she
Yeah.
gets the title credit in these two.
Right.
And no, I mean, I the other one there was something to it, but this one, yeah, there's really
Yeah.
nothing.
I am really glad that we've reached this point, just because we are done with all of the specials now, and we're gonna move into sort of a new era for the comics starting next week, and especially the week after that, frankly. Because this is not, there's nothing to really end on here. It's like, the end of that bunny story is the end of the special, and it's like, that's not exactly an explosive ending, is it?
Yeah.
How would we rank Sonic Blast with the other specials? Would we put it above Sonic Live, I guess is the question.
Yes.
Oh,
100%.
easily.
Okay.
I'm losing track. What would be above that? I need like a running list to see where to put it.
Honestly, yeah.
So I think our ranking is Mecha Madness and Super vs. Hyper at the top. They're tied.
Right.
Okay.
Then we have Sonic in Your Face, the first one with Sally's Quest and all that.
Yeah.
Then Knuckles Chaotix, I don't think we put that above Sonic in Your Face.
I doubt we did.
Because the secondary stories for that were two Penders fuckabouts, and that was annoying.
Right.
Sonic Triple Trouble, maybe that should go above Chaotix? I don't remember. Because the second story of that was the one with Locke, so it was not a Penders fuckabout just because it was important.
Right.
And then we had Sonic Live and Sonic Blast, or Sonic and Knuckles. I said they tied earlier tonight. We can put them where we like.
If that's the running total, we need to keep track of this. We need to put this down somewhere. Then I would say probably I'd put it between Triple Trouble and whatever's right above that. Chaotix, right?
Right.
Because I mean, it's another game adaptation one that kind of doesn't do a whole lot beyond that. But there's a fair amount of craziness, and like I said, I'll give it props for using at least a lot of the imagery from the games. It looks like right out of the game, so that's where I would vote for it.
All right.
Well, that seems like an okay placement for it, and I'll keep those on the bottom. I'll put up a chart that people will be able to see it, and that actually marks the end of tonight. But I am nothing if not incredibly excited for next time, because we've got an additional 5 issues, as usual. 2 Sonic issues that are probably pretty good. I don't even remember which ones those are. Probably pretty good, though. But we also get the first 3-issue arc of the ongoing Knuckles the Echidna series. And that arc is called Knuckles the Dark Legion.
Ooh.
Nice.
So, for anybody else watching out there, that's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
And we're going to be done for tonight after that. So feel free to share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, or criticism for how completely disjointed and half-dead I sound in this episode, you can always reach us at deepdivezonepod@gmail.com or at deepdivezone on Twitter. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week.